Imagine selling paradise itself, a land of gold-lined rivers, endless harvests, and eternal summer, a kingdom waiting for settlers to claim their fortune. Now imagine stepping off a ship after months at sea and realizing the paradise you bought doesn't exist. That's not fiction. It's the true story of Gregor McGregor, the man who convinced hundreds of people to sail to a country drawn only in his imagination. It began like every great con does, with charm, courage, and a sprinkle of truth. Gregor McGregor was no ordinary swindler. He was a war hero, a man who'd fought under Simón Bolívar in South America's wars of independence. He wore medals, told stories of jungle battles, and claimed friendship with revolutionaries. When he returned to London in 1820, he carried something far more powerful than gold, a reputation, and timing, perfect timing. Britain was changing. The Industrial Revolution had transformed the landscape. Factory chimneys belched black smoke over crowded cities. Workers toiled 14 hours a day in dangerous conditions for meager wages. The gap between rich and poor stretched wider by the day. For the average Briton, life wasn't just hard, it was suffocating. The dream of escape burned in countless hearts. And into this perfect storm of desperation and hope stepped Gregor McGregor. McGregor told the British elite that he'd been granted a vast tract of land by a Central American chief, an untouched paradise called Poyais. It was, he said, the jewel of the Caribbean. He described it in sensuous detail, the sweet scent of tropical fruits carried on gentle breezes, the sound of clear water rushing over gold-flecked riverbeds, the feel of rich soil between your fingers, a place where nature's abundance meant no one would ever go hungry again. McGregor wasn't just selling land, he was selling rebirth, a chance to escape the Industrial Revolution's crushing reality and return to an Eden-like existence. He produced maps, documents, even a national flag with a white background and blue star. He called himself Cacique of Poyais, Prince of the land. Investors lined up. He printed Poyaisian bonds, sold land certificates, and appointed ministers and ambassadors. He even published a guidebook describing fertile soil, marble palaces, and a bustling capital called St. Joseph. The guidebook was a masterpiece of deception. It detailed Poyais' banking system, its military, its government buildings. It described the native Poyais Indians as friendly and docile, eager to work for British settlers. It even included a Poyaisian language with helpful translations. There was only one problem. None of it was real. The early 1800s were an age of greed disguised as optimism. Britain was booming. Colonial dreams filled newspapers and dinner tables. To a weary middle class, Poyais wasn't a scam, it was salvation. James Wilson, a carpenter from Edinburgh, sold his workshop and home. His wife Margaret packed their children's clothes and a family Bible. They weren't just buying land, they were buying a future their cramped tenement could never offer. "We'll have an orchard," James told his children at night, "and you'll each have your own room in our new house." The children would fall asleep, dreaming of climbing tropical trees and swimming in warm, crystal waters. The Wilsons weren't naive. James had worked hard his entire life. He'd built furniture for some of Edinburgh's wealthiest families. He understood value. He understood investment. What made McGregor's con so perfect wasn't just the promise. It was the social proof. When respected doctors, military officers and merchants bought in, how could ordinary people resist? After all, surely these educated men wouldn't be fooled. Dr. Hasty, a respected physician, sold his practice to become Surgeon General of Poyais. He invested his life savings in the venture and convinced several medical colleagues to join him. "Think of the diseases we'll cure," he told them. "Think of the medical advancements we'll make in such a climate." McGregor's pitch sounded almost holy, a place where hard-working families could start anew, far from poverty and industrial smoke. The settlers didn't just hear McGregor's words, they felt them. The promise resonated in their bones. It answered a primal yearning for space, for freedom, for dignity that industrial Britain had stripped away. In 1822, the first settlers set sail. 2 ships carrying more than 200 souls, bound for a paradise that existed only on paper. The journey itself was grueling. Weeks at sea, cramped quarters, salt-preserved food. But spirits remained high. Each wave brought them closer to their new lives. They sang songs in the evenings, they planned businesses and farms, they formed committees for the new settlement. Some even studied Spanish to communicate with their future neighbors. After weeks across the Atlantic, the Honduras packet reached the Mosquito Coast. The spot marked Poyais on McGregor's maps. There was no harbor, no city, no civilization, just jungle and silence. The settlers' first night ashore wasn't just disappointing, it was terrifying. The humid air thick with mosquitoes, strange sounds echoing from the jungle darkness. The taste of fear as supplies dwindled faster than anyone had planned. There must be some mistake, they told each other. Perhaps we've landed at the wrong coordinates. They tried to convince themselves they were early, that maybe the main settlement was further inland. But after days of hacking through vines and mosquitoes, hope turned to dread. The second ship arrived and found the first already starving. Disease spread, malaria, fever, despair. Dr. Hasty, who had invested his life savings and brought his medical instruments to serve as Poyes' Surgeon General, watched helplessly as his own children succumbed to fever. His medical training useless against the jungle's ruthless reality. "I've killed them," he wrote in his journal. "I've killed my family with my own ambition." The settlers tried to build shelters from the relentless rain. They tried to plant the European seeds they'd brought. They tried to hunt in the unfamiliar forest, but the jungle doesn't yield easily to newcomers. Within months, 2/3 of the settlers were dead. Those who survived were rescued by British ships patrolling the coast, too horrified to believe what they'd found. The survivors returned to Britain as ghosts of themselves, emaciated, traumatized, and utterly destitute. They had sold everything to chase a dream that never existed. And where was Gregor McGregor during all this? Back in London, hosting parties. Even as news trickled home of the disaster, he denied everything. He blamed disloyal agents, claiming the settlers had landed in the wrong location. Then, astonishingly, he moved his operation to France. In Paris, he did it again. New investors, new settlers, new dreams. He hosted lavish dinners where he spoke of Poyes' untapped potential. He dressed in a specially designed uniform of his own creation, the military regalia of a country that existed only in his mind. He almost succeeded, until a few survivors exposed him publicly. French authorities arrested him in 1826. The trial was a spectacle. Europe's newspapers couldn't get enough. McGregor sat in the courtroom, impeccably dressed, his military medals gleaming. He spoke with the confidence of a man who believed his own lies. McGregor argued he'd been deceived, too, that the native chiefs truly had granted him the land. And in a bizarre twist, the jury acquitted him. Why? Because he looked and sounded like a gentleman. Because he was one of them. Because admitting they could be fooled by one of their own was too frightening to contemplate. The investors lost everything. But Gregor McGregor walked free, his charm intact. He fled back to South America, living quietly in Caracas under his old military title, General McGregor. He received a small pension, told stories of his kingdom, and died peacefully in 1845. Still calling himself the Prince of Poyes. In his final years, he would sit in Caracas cafes, regaling young men with tales of his adventures. "I once ruled a kingdom," he would say, perhaps believing it himself by then. Back in Britain, the Poyes scandal became legend, a symbol of arrogance, greed, and the dangerous power of belief. The survivors rarely spoke of their ordeal. The shame of having been so thoroughly deceived was too great. James Wilson, the Edinburgh carpenter, returned to Scotland a broken man. He never worked wood again. His hands, once skilled at creating beauty from raw materials, now trembled too much to hold a saw. The tragedy of Poyes wasn't just a con, it was a mirror. McGregor didn't invent greed or hope. He simply offered people what they already wanted, a shortcut to paradise. The settlers weren't fools. They were dreamers, ordinary men and women crushed by industrial life, desperate for purpose. And Gregor McGregor understood something timeless. If you paint the lie in the colors of hope, people will build the bridge themselves. The most dangerous lies aren't the ones that deceive us about facts. They're the ones that deceive us about ourselves, about what we're capable of believing when we desperately want something to be true. When Elizabeth Holmes promised Theranos would revolutionize blood testing with just a drop of blood, investors poured in billions. When crypto founders sold digital kingdoms built on code instead of land, promising financial freedom from corrupt systems, millions rushed to buy in. They weren't inventing new cons. They were following McGregor's blueprint. Sell the dream, let others imagine the details, and leverage social proof until the lie becomes too big to question. 2 centuries later, the world still buys maps to places that don't exist. Different names, same dream. And somewhere, Gregor McGregor would be smiling. Perhaps the most chilling part of the Poyes story isn't that one man could invent a country. It's that we're all still vulnerable to the same deception, because we all carry a Poyes in our hearts. a place where our problems vanish, where our work is rewarded, where justice prevails. And when someone offers us a map to that place, the temptation to believe can overwhelm even the most rational mind. Some lies destroy empires, others build them. If stories like this fascinate you, stay curious and subscribe to Chronicles of Eras to uncover the hidden history that shaped our world.